Hello, everyone, and welcome to On Purpose Astrology. I'm Mandy Lockley, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the full moon in Virgo on February the 24th. I'm recording this on February the 23rd, a little bit later than usual, recording and posting this video. You can probably hear a little croak in my voice. I did just recently recover from COVID. Yes, that's still a thing, but it's fine. It was just like a bad cold, lasted a few days, but I'm still left with a bit of a croaky voice, so I do apologize. But let's have a look at this full moon in Virgo. Let's look at the chart, see what the chart shows us. Have a look at that chart here. Don't worry if you can't read charts or read the symbols. I'm going to sort of talk through some of the meanings of this, well, the key meanings really, in my view, of this particular full moon. So whenever I have a full moon, it's obviously the sun opposite the moon in the chart. And it highlights a pair of zodiac signs because it's an opposition. So you always have the moon in the sign that's opposite to the sign the sun's in during a full moon. It's the full light of the moon, so things can be seen, so things become more obvious. There's no hiding under the full moon. We don't actually want to hide often under the full moon. That's why the full moon is associated with more sociability and going out. And this moon in particular is quite good for socializing, as we'll see. 24th of February, London 12:30. I set the chart for London. I always do. That's because it's the default on my software because I live in London, of course. If you are in the US, in Pacific times, 4:30 a.m., same day, 7:30 a.m. if you're in Eastern US time. If you're in Australia, it'll still be on the 24th of February, but it'll be quite late in the evening, 11:30 p.m. If you're, for example, in Kolkata in India, 6 p.m. So those are the different times, the different time zones. If you're in a different place, if you're not in London, the full moon will fall in different houses. The houses are the 12 segments of the chart, of course, but they'll be in different houses. So we don't need to worry about what houses the planets are in this chart because it's only relevant for London. So we're going to just ignore that for now. So let's look at the Virgo Pisces axis. I find this actually one of the most interesting ones, actually. We've got Virgo, the moon's in Virgo, the moon in Virgo, Virgo generally wants things to be in order. Whereas Pisces is happy for things to just go with the flow and is a little bit more comfortable with chaos. The the moon in Virgo, Virgo generally can be quite critical to the point of being criticizing. That's one thing that Virgo tends to do. It tends to pick on little details, which can come across as criticizing. Although the essence of Virgo is kindness and usefulness. So there is there's not a meanness, generally speaking, to Virgo. So where Virgo picks up on the small details and can criticize or come across as criticizing, Pisces tends to not miss the small details, but tends to sort of not see the small details, tends to see the more of the wholeness, tends to be more compassionate and sympathetic rather than criticizing. As I've alluded to, Virgo is about the detail. It likes to organize, it likes to categorize. Whereas Pisces isn't too bothered about categorization, about unity consciousness. Essentially, we're looking at from the spiritual level. Virgo's an earth sign, therefore it's practical. So Virgo shows its kindness through doing practical things generally, and also saying things that are useful and practical. It's Virgo is ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication, of course. Whereas Pisces will respond emotionally. They'll kind of match your emotions, or they'll understand your emotions, or Pisces will empathize with your emotions. So if you need help, Pisces will be there to listen, to feel the compassion with you. Whereas Virgo will be, more likely to give you advice or practical steps to sort of help you out or sort of talk to you about theoretical things, for example. So actions and reactions, practical actions, Virgo, and emotional reactions, Pisces, where Virgo likes to control things, as I've already said. Pisces prefers generally. We're talking about the purest, most general, um, you know, ideas about these two signs, qualities about these two signs, going with the flow, as I said, Pisces. But what they have in common, Virgo and Pisces, and these are I'm explaining all this because it's some of the themes for this particular full moon. You know, the balance. Where is the balance between order and chaos? Where is the balance between empathizing not just with others and with the world, the things that are happening? There's some terrible things happening in the world. We might feel upset on behalf of suffering. That's very Piscean. Virgo is about, well, what can we do about it? What does it mean? So they work together. We find the balance when you've got that opposition. It's all about finding the balance. Because what they have in common is that they both want to serve, they both want to help. Pisces and Virgo wants to serve, wants to help, wants to be useful. They can rescue others, for example. It's a self-compassion when you're talking about yourself. Pisces invites you to be compassionate to yourself, not just to others. Where Virgo is more analytical and more prone to that inner critic, that little voice that tells you, you're not perfect. Pisces will tell you, you're fine just the way you are. And it's finding that balance, isn't it? It's all about balance with an opposition, all about balance with a full moon. You'll see in this chart, I've circled the sun at the top of the chart in how particularly it happens to be in house 9 for London. You see there at the top of the chart. And it's sandwiched between Saturn. Saturn is the planet. It's also the planet of control. It's about what we might fear. It's about blocks, its obstacles, its doubts, its tests, its lessons. It can sometimes, some astrologers say it's to do with karma more on the spiritual level. Mercury, as we know, is about communication. Mercury in Pisces communicates differently. It communicates emotionally rather than more analytically in Pisces. It is in traditional astrology, Mercury in Pisces is not a good placement. I think it's in its fall. It's in its fall, not its detriment. I do get a bit confusion Pisces, but I think it's in its fall, which means it's difficult to express itself analytically and purely in that communication. I'm doing it now, aren't I? I'm not communicating very clearly. I'm kind of almost aping the Mercury in Pisces, trying to explain the unexplainable. That's why Mercury in Pisces often finds expression through creativity, through art, through photography, through music, through dance, or any creative activity, even creative writing, for example. But you'll see that the sun in Pisces here, opposite at 5 degrees, opposite the 5 degree moon in Virgo, is associated with Saturn and Mercury, both in Pisces. So what does that mean? Well, this is where I've already alluded to the idea of Mercury, Virgo, sorry. I'm doing Mercury in Pisces very well today in this with my croaky voice. I can't quite communicate properly. You forgive me. But we've already talked about Virgo being the critic. So maybe Saturn and Mercury here with the sun at the top of the chart for this full moon, that's making you aware of your inner critic. You know, we all have that inner critic. We might not always be aware of it, but some of us are very aware of it. We have that inner critic that tells us, I don't know, the other day I tripped up. I tripped on a stair in my house and slipped and fell over, which is very rare for me. I'm a sure-footed Capricorn goat, but I fell over and I'm like, oh, my first thought was, I'm okay. My second thought was, well, that was stupid. What a silly Billy. What you know, how must how did I do that? Why didn't I take more care? Why didn't I, all of those things? I was kind of, almost criticizing myself. Now, if someone was with me, particularly a Pisces, they would say, "Are you okay? Are you fine? Are you all right? If you got a bruise, you're going to do anything?" They wouldn't be calling me silly Billy, or you are stupid, or you are clumsy, or all these kind of things. Virgo was in the room, they'd be going, "Oh, get up, what can I do to help? Oh, you've got a bruise on your arm. Maybe I've got some arnica cream. I can put that on to help with the bruising or whatever. So this is how they help and serve and make themselves useful. It's just a very simple, simple example there. So the inner critic, Saturn and Mercury together, you feel like you don't know enough. Feels like you don't have enough of the facts. The facts are kind of eluding you because it's Pisces. You don't know everything. You want to know everything. It's a full moon. You want to see everything. You can see everything, but perhaps you can't really interpret. What does it mean? We're talking about relationships, particularly. Relationships is always a theme for a full moon. In this particular chart, you'll see in house 8 here, the relationship planets, Venus and Mars, are in conjunction. So that puts more focus on relationships. We're talking all sorts of relationships here, not just romantic relationships, because Venus and Mars are in Aquarius. So that also speaks to friendships, particularly friendship groups or any kind of groups that you're in, whether that's a work team or sort of groups that you socially are part of. So we're talking that double whammy of a relationship focus. Now, where we have some good news, where we can maybe have more faith in ourselves and faith in others, is the fact that there are some nice aspects in this chart for the full moon to Jupiter. You can see Jupiter there, 10 degrees Taurus in the 11th house. It's in grey. If you're looking at the picture, the Jupiter symbol is in grey. So Jupiter is making a sextile to Saturn at the moment. It's also making a trine to that Venus Mars conjunction there in the 8th house. What does that mean? Well, a trine is a flowing aspect. Pisces, the sun's in Pisces, this is about flow. As I said, Virgo, this Virgo moon wants to belong. It might feel like it doesn't belong in the group or doesn't feel totally comfortable in the relationship. Because I'll tell you why, because if you look at this chart shape here, it's what's called a bucket shape. So all the planets there you'll see are in the top half of the chart, that hemisphere of the chart there. You see all of them there. And then house 3 right at the bottom of the chart on its own, really, because the South Node, which you'll see in the 5th house, that's not a planet, that's a point. Ceres is a sort of minor dwarf planet. But the planets that are really the planets that we use on a day-to-day basis when we look at a chart are all in the opposite hemisphere to the moon. So the moon is on its own, it's isolated. So there's a focus on the isolation where everyone else looks like they're kind of in a clique, maybe. They're going with the flow, everything's easy and simple for them potentially. But emotionally, the moon is about how we experience our emotions. Emotionally, we feel like, why is that? Why do I feel kind of on the outside? A quick point about the bucket chart. So I've already said that the houses are going to be different if you're in a different part of the world. But the it's only the houses that are moved. The wheel moves around, so the planets fall in different houses, but the chart shape will be the same wherever you are in the world. So wherever you are, say for example, if the moon falls in the 7th house in your country, or if it falls in the 7th house in your chart, if you're tracking this full moon against your own birth chart, you put the wheel for the, you can do this on astro.com actually, you can put the wheel of the full moon on the outside of the wheel for your birth chart. And basically, more basically, wherever you've got early Virgo, 5 degrees of Virgo in your chart, that's where this full moon, the moon in the full moon will fall. So basically, to go back to this bucket shape, so for example, if the moon in Virgo for this full moon falls in the 7th house of whatever chart you're looking at, whether it's for the place you're at or whether it's for your own chart, then everything else will fall on the left-hand side as we're looking at it, the left-hand side of the chart, and the moon will be on its own in the right-hand side of the chart, so on a different hemisphere. Hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not being too Mercury in Pisces here. I hope I'm making sense. But so wherever you are in the world, basically, you'll have this bucket shape. Okay. So you'll have that moon is sort of on its own, almost like a little singleton in that hemisphere. And a singleton, when it's on its own, i.e., it's unaspected, which isn't the case here, but it's on its own in a sector of the chart, a hemisphere of the chart, it highlights it. So there's a real highlight on your emotions here. As I was saying, before I got Mercury in Pisces distracted a little bit and went off on a little bit of a tangent, was that the good news here is that we have that Jupiter. We have that flowing Jupiter trine to that relationship aspect of Venus conjunct Mars. We also have that sextile, as I've already mentioned, to Jupiter from Saturn. And also, of course, that brings in the Sun and it brings in the Mercury because they're in a conjunction. So it's, you'll have the Mercury, the Sun, and the Saturn in a sextile to Jupiter. Now, what does that mean? That's just words, right? So what that means is basically it'll be easier for you if you can go with the flow of things. If you can relax enough. Now, relaxing is quite hard sometimes for Virgo. They're always kind of on the go. They're always, thinking about what's next. But if you can relax and go with the flow during this full moon, it'll be a lot easier. Relationships will be easier. There's more harmony in relationships. Jupiter brings an opportunity whenever it's in your chart, but particularly, whenever it makes an aspect, but particularly when it's making a soft aspect, such as a trine, an easy flowing trine. It's also good for creativity, actually. So if you've got creative projects, Saturn, you don't often think of Saturn as being creative, but because Saturn makes that sextile, again, that sextile is an easy flowing aspect which gives you opportunities. Okay, so you've got the opportunity to use practical skills, Saturn and the moon in Virgo, in an imaginative Pisces and creative Pisces way. So whether you've got a creative project on the go or whether it's to do with these relationships, these friendship groups or a romantic relationship, and there's the potential there for a nice easy flow if you can kind of relax into this full moon enough. And sometimes we do feel a bit wired during the full moon, of course. A lot of people say, oh, the moon was really bright, I don't sleep very well in the full moon, because there's extra energy to put into things. So if you can put that extra energy into the flow, then socialize, go with the flow. Don't worry too much about organizing things. Just kind of experiment, see what happens if you just, well, see what happens, basically. Virgo is great for organizing. So if you do want to socialize with your friendship group or you want to do something collaboratively, creatively, again, that creativity is really good for this Venus Mars conjunction in Aquarius square Jupiter in Taurus. Taurus is also a very creative sign as well. Then you can come up with the idea, you can propose the idea, you can organize some kind of get together, whether it's social or creative or for whatever, and then just do the organization. That's what Virgo loves. Moon in Virgo loves to do the organization to bring people together. Then you might have that sense of belonging that you might be missing, but you also then just let things flow however they want to. Don't try and set too much of an itinerary or an agenda. Don't organize the fun out of things. So, time to be sociable, of course. There's a sense of purpose as well. Whenever we have Saturn meeting Jupiter, we've got that easy sextile, as I've said, and the sun's there as well, and the Mercury's there as well. We have this idea of a sense of purpose. So there's a purposefulness, but let that purposefulness be an idea that can flow, and it can flow beautifully. I think this is quite a nice full moon. I hope you are able to enjoy it. It's been difficult, as you know. A lot of us are sort of feeling some of the shocks from Pluto going into Aquarius, particularly if we're watching things in the news, but also things that are happening in our private lives if we are having a Pluto transit, there's always big tumultuous changes, or the sense that big tumultuous changes are coming whenever Pluto changes signs, and it really is getting settled now into Aquarius. So that's the full moon. I hope you have a good one. I just want to mention very quickly, I have a few talks coming up on the 27th of April for the Academy of Astrology UK. I'm doing a talk on the life purpose in the birth chart. That the details for booking that haven't gone up yet. Literally, I was asked to do it a couple of days ago, but I'm just getting in there quickly to let you know what I'm up to. When it is available to book, you can I will send you the link in the in a future video. I'll put the link in the description. Actually, it's part of a series of webinars that the Academy of Astrology UK are doing with some brilliant astrologers. So there are a couple of others that are going to be happening before the 27th of April. So actually, I'll put the link in now on this video so that you can see what other astrologers are doing. I think Leanne McCafferty is doing a talk on the planet series, the dwarf planet series. I think there are other talks as well. The other big news is that I am going to be speaking at the conference of the Astrological Association of Great Britain, which takes place at the end of August, and I'll be doing two talks on that, which is really exciting. More details of that to come as well. In the meantime, have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. It's Friday afternoon here, and I'm looking forward to a beautiful weekend. I'm actually going to a exhibition about fantasy at the British Library, which I think is fantastic for all this Pisces, this Sun and Mercury here in Pisces. I'm going to be enjoying that with friends as well as my partner, with friends as well. So I'm going to be doing the chart myself and going with the flow and have an amazing time. I hope you have an amazing time too. I hope you have a little bit of a relief if you're going through any stress or suffering at the moment. I hope you can find some joy and relief at the moment. So I'm going to just go to the last slide now. Subscribe below. There we go. Thank you for all my subscribers and people who've watched my videos so far. My website, of course, is onpurposeastrology.com. Apologies for the croaky voice. Apologies for the tangent. As I say, I'm just recovering from an illness, but I'm absolutely fine now, and I will be back on full form very soon. I love you lots. I love you always. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.